Hello, Mindsetters, and welcome to it. This is your one and only most learning and most insightful show ever. It is Learn Extra. My name is Abraham, and I'm not alone. I'm with Martin today. How are you, Martin?
Hi, I'm well, thanks, Abraham. How are you?
Nice meeting you.
Nice
so
to be
good,
here.
and I can't wait to learn a lot because accounting is one of my favorite subjects.
Right, and today, Mindsetters, we're going to introduce you to inventory valuation methods, which is your FIFO and your weighted average. So we'll be discussing that just now.
I like that. Mindsetters, let me tell you what you need to do now. Before we discuss that, one, you need to take your pen and your paper and your cell phone next to you or your computer just next to you and log on to Facebook and like our page. If you haven't, please do right now. It is facebook.com/Learn Extra. Also on the page, you will see that we are having a special event just for you to wish your dad a special message for Father's Day, which is going to be on the 16th of June. Next week Sunday. So make sure that you get over the page and let us know what are your wishes for your dad. Secondly, you can add us on Twitter, follow us, and we'll follow you back at Learn Extra. And lastly, you can download your notes for this lesson on learnextra.co.za/live. One last thing that I need to tell you is that you can also visit our career endeavor, which is going to be happening in Expo, which is going to be happening at Sentin Convention Center from the 20th up until the 22nd of June. We'll be there also to meet you there, helping you with your careers and making sure that you make the right choices. But for now, let's learn more accounting.
Thank you very much, Abraham, and welcome, Mindsetters. Today's topic is a grade 12 topic, and this is a topic that was quite new to you because it's something that was not done in grade 11 and not done in grade 10. So we're talking about inventory valuation methods. When we're talking about inventory, Mindsetters, very, very important. If you run a business and you want to sell something, you are going to have something called trading stock. And your trading stock needs to be valued, which is why we have come up with a few different methods of valuing your trading stock. So that's what I'm going to be discussing with you today. Let's take a look at the theory that you need to learn. In today's lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to seek to understand the theory behind the two main stock valuation methods. We're trying to value our trading stock. We're trying to determine what the value of our inventory is. You need to know that there are two such methods that you will be likely to be asked in a test or an examination in grade 12. They are FIFO, some teachers call it FIFO, it's the same thing, or there is the weighted average method. And those are the two methods that I'm going to be going through with you today. What we need to do as well is understand the theory, but also apply the two stock valuation methods in a practical activity. So you're actually really going to do it. You're going to value your stock based on one of the two methods. And then finally, you need to be able to compare the two stock valuation methods. So we've got two ways of doing a thing, but we want to know what answers are we going to get and how do they differ from the FIFO method to the weighted average method. So let's have a look at the key concepts that you should know about. First of all, as I've said it before, these methods are applied when we want to value our trading stock. We've got other assets in the business. We've got land and buildings, we've got vehicles, we've got equipment. Those things can also be valued, but we use different ways. What we're doing in accounting here is valuing only our trading stock. Okay? It might sometimes be challenging to value our trading stock. So you know, Abraham, when we go shopping, what happens to prices? They're constantly on the rise. And it makes it very, very hard to keep up with what the value of something is. Mindsetters, I'm sure you've experienced this in your daily life. You would go to a shop, you buy a Coke, and then a couple of months later or years later, you come back and then the price has risen. Okay? That can happen very, very fast, and it is difficult to value what your trading stock is really worth if prices are continually rising. Because let's say I bought some stock, I'm a supplier, right? And I buy some stock which I want to resell at the end of the month. And then I buy some more stock because I've sold some of the stock that I bought, but I buy the new stock at a higher price. The challenge comes in to know what is my stock worth at any given point in time. Am I going to use the cheaper price that I bought the stock at, or am I going to use the more expensive price? I need to figure out and know a method of valuing my trading inventory. So we know that in our economy, we've had some bad news in South Africa that in the recent times, the rand has depreciated. It's gone to almost 10 rand to the dollar. So what's going to happen to products that we import from overseas? The prices are going to go up. If the prices rise or if the prices change, we are going to experience a challenge to value our trading stock. How much is the stock that is on our shelves worth? So, as a result, we've got two methods to do this. The one is called FIFO, and the other one is called weighted average. There is a third method that you can also use, and Abram, I'd like to maybe ask the mindsetters to write into Facebook and tell us if you've heard of the third method. It's a third method of valuing stock. It's almost like FIFO, but there's a small difference. And let's see if any of our mindsetters know that. Please write to us on the Facebook page and tell me what's the third method of stock valuation, and I'll tell you what that is afterwards. But remember, that's the one that you are not allowed to use in South Africa because that's the one that SARS does not allow. So the two that you are going to study and that you're going to have to know how to do are the FIFO method and the weighted average method. And what we do is when we start a business, we choose a method, but this method chosen should be used consistently. What do I mean by consistently? I mean we're not going to change that method. So from year to year, we need to use the same method to value the stock. I've asked you a question. Why is that the case? Throughout our business, we shouldn't really change the stock valuation systems. Why should we keep things constant? Why should we value things according to the same way? The main reason is so that we can make good comparisons from one year to the next. So I might want to know what is my trading stock worth this year, and then I want to compare it to what my trading stock is worth next year. If I use a different stock valuation method, I'm going to get misleading results. So the reason that we use the method consistently is to compare information regarding the business from one year to the next. We want to make sure that the method that we've chosen stays the same. Okay, now that I've talked about the theory behind it, let's look at the key concepts and the key characteristics.
I already have your answers.
Oh, you do? What's your answer?
There's one from Karabo Mukele which says the third method is the LIFO. Last in, first out.
Excellent. Well done. You're quite right. That third method is called the LIFO or LIFO method, which stands for last in, first out. Very good. I see somebody's already been studying their accounting. Well done. If we look at FIFO, though, FIFO and LIFO are similar methods, but the only one that we're allowed to use from SARS is the FIFO method in South Africa. So it stands for first in, first out. F stands for first, then the I for in, then first out. So what that really means is that the stock that came in first is the stock that is going out first. In other words, the stock that was bought first is the stock that is sold first. I don't know, Abraham, if you ever go to the shop to buy milk or something like that. When you go to the shop to buy milk, you know the milk has got an expiry date. You see the expiry date.
Yes.
And usually, the way the shop packs the milk is in such a way that if you want the milk with the longest expiry date, what do you have to do? Have to dig
you
through
have to
the
go,
other...
yeah, on the shelves. Look, they hide it.
They hide it. They put it all the way at the back.
Yes.
Why? Because they want you to take the oldest milk first.
More like bread. I've noticed that a lot.
You've noticed that a lot.
Yes.
So the freshest bread, they always hide somewhere in the
Yes.
back so that you take the oldest bread you take out first. That is because the shop is using the FIFO weighting system. The stock that they've bought first is the stock that they want to sell first. In other words, the first stock that came in is the first stock to come out. The first bread that was baked is the first bread to go out. We know all about it. You just have to visit your local supermarket to see that. So the result of this is that our closing stock is going to be valued at the most recent price. When I mean closing stock, I'm talking about the stock that is left over at the end of the month. In other words, it's the stock that's unsold. I, as a business, want to know what the value of that stock is. And the result of using FIFO is that the first stock that comes in will be the first stock that goes out. So what that means is that the closing stock will be valued at the most recent price. And you'll see how this works later on when we go through an activity together. Also, mindsetters, this type of stock valuation system is suitable for any type of business. So it doesn't matter if you're a grocery store or a computer store or an electronics store or even a car dealership, anything like that can use the FIFO method. But it is most often used by businesses that sell perishable goods. In other words, why would the shop want to sell the old bread first? Because the longer it keeps the old bread on the shelves, the longer or the faster that bread is going to go off. So they want to sell it, they want the consumer to buy it and take it home and eat it before that bread goes stale or goes old. So perishable goods will often use the FIFO system. And this next note tells you exactly what we've just been talking about. The shops will display their trading stock in such a way as to encourage customers to purchase the oldest stock first. We want our oldest stock to leave our shelves first, so the supermarket will probably give instructions to the packers, put the old stock near the front so that the customer comes in, just grabs the milk, and they've grabbed the milk that has the shortest expiry date. In other words, the milk that came in first. And this is also realistic. It's a realistic stock valuation system because the stock values at the end of the year are valued at the most recent prices. So it's no use buying something at the beginning of the year that costs 10 Rand, and then you sell it, and at the end of the year, the price has doubled or tripled, and it's cost 50 Rand, and you're trying to value what the value of your stock on your shelves is. It's going to be worth at the latest price, not at the price at the beginning, because the price has changed throughout the year. Okay, so that's the FIFO method. Let's look now at the second method of stock, which is the characteristics of the weighted average method. So mindsetters, I'm sure you're all familiar with the concept of an average. Everybody always gets average marks for their subjects. They work out their averages for a term and so on and so forth. And in stock valuation, we have a method called the weighted average method. Sometimes teachers abbreviate it as the word WAM, standing for weighted average method. What you do with the weighted average method is you calculate your stock value by dividing. You know, with an average, you usually take all the numbers together and divide it by something to get an answer, or you divide it by the number of values that you have. You would have used the term average sometimes when you're calculating certain financial ratios. So you would, for example, put average owner's equity at the bottom of a ratio if you're calculating your return ratio. Okay? This lesson is not about calculating your return on equity, but the formula for return on equity, I'm sure you all know it, it's equal to net profit after tax over average owner's equity. So the owner's equity at the bottom is the average owner's equity. Here we are using something similar, which is the weighted average method for valuing stock. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide, let me use a different color to highlight that clearly, the total cost of all the merchandise that we have. So everything that we have of that kind, what it cost us, we're going to divide it by the number of units, and that's going to give us the weighted average. So you'll see just now how that works. And what that means is that your high prices are averaged with your low prices. So think about when you're writing a subject and you do, say, 2 or 3 tests in a term for a particular subject. If you get a low mark in one test and you get a higher mark in the other test, those two are averaged out, and you're going to get a mark that's somewhere in between. The same is going to happen when we do the weighted average method. Our high prices are going to be averaged with the low prices. So what that means is that we get an average price throughout the time period for what our stock is worth. But the one disadvantage is that it might not reflect your current market conditions, especially in a time such as now when the rand is depreciated and importing products has become more expensive for us. What sometimes is going to happen is we're going to pay higher prices than we paid before. So if we take the average, we do not necessarily always have a realistic measure of what that stock is worth at this period in time. So what you need to do, mindsetters, please remember that there are advantages and disadvantages to both methods. Go back, look at your notes, compare them to what I've said here today, and make sure that you know your theory very, very well. Because you need to be able to compare and contrast and comment on our two stock valuation methods. Just to mention what the LIFO is, we had some correct answers about LIFO. If you're doing the LIFO method, what that is it stands for last in, first out. So sometimes you could be asked to just describe that last in, first out. That is just basically going to be the opposite of first in, first out. What that means is the stock that came in last will be the first stock to leave. But remember, you won't be using that in South Africa, and you won't have to calculate it. You just have to know about its existence. Okay. So, Abraham, I think we've got time just to look at the first question.
Yes, please.
So, the first question that we've got for you here is, I've forgotten to do something. What you need to do, your key outcomes here that you have to learn, and make sure you go over this. You need to be able to value the number of units on hand. What that means is if I've sold a lot of things and I want to know how many of them are left over, I will be calculating the number of units on hand. And I'm going to show you in a few minutes with a practical example how that gets done. The second thing that usually gets asked for you is to calculate the value of the closing stock according to both methods or one method. So they're either going to ask you to do it according to FIFO or according to weighted average, or both, and make sure that you know how to do them and compare them. Then it's not only your closing stock, you would also need to calculate your cost of sales. And again, you'd have to do that according to both methods. And then one other important thing is that you have to make sure that you calculate the gross profit according to both methods. Okay, the gross profit has got a special formula, and I'd like to ask all you mindsetters out there, please send us the formula on Facebook. I want to see if you know what the formula is. Tell us what the formula is to calculate our gross profit, and then you'll see how it differs between the two methods. Okay, so I think it's about time for an ad break. When we get back from the ad break, we're going to look at one of the questions.
Right. Thank you very much, Martin. Now, mindset is on this break, as much as you're writing the formula, I don't need you to go anywhere. You need to be where you are right now, because we are having a last day today for our After Earth competition. So, you know that we've been playing the trailer throughout for the past 2 weeks. Today, it's the last chance for you to win. You're going to check out this trailer for the last time, and then after, I'll be giving you the competition details. So do not go anywhere else, because after this, you're going to be getting an opportunity to win some of these prizes. This is the hamper. It's so cool. And also, we'll be giving a double ticket to Lucky Mindsetters. Yeah, see how cool it is? It's very cool, hey, Martin?
It's great. It's wonderful.
Yeah. After the break, we'll be giving you more tickets and the winners from yesterday's show. Welcome back, matriculants, accounting buffins. I hope now you've enjoyed that trailer for the last time. But here's an awesome opportunity. If you'd like to see the entire movie tomorrow, it's launching the 7th of June. Tomorrow it's happening. I can't wait to go to my nearest cinema and watch the movie. But talking about that, here's somebody who is going to be going out to watch the movie with her friend. Her name is Tota Matsipa. Congratulations to you, Tota Matsipa, for winning this awesome hamper and also double tickets for you and your friend to come watch out this movie. I'll be there also. Hope to see you wherever you're going to be. I'll be also watching the movie. I hope Martin can come along also. But otherwise, mindsetters, here's another thing that you need to do to enter. To stand your chance of winning these double tickets and the hamper, you can just go over Facebook. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/learnextra, and look for the code that I have posted on the page, which is environment. So if you'd like to win for this, if you'd like to win, just here's your keyword, environment, and that's it. If you'd like to win, enter now. Thank you very much, Martin.
Okay, thanks very much, Abraham, and I hope you mindsetters are going to go and watch that movie. I'm certainly going to watch it myself. So, let's get back to the question and to FIFO and weighted average. Some of you have been commenting on Facebook that you find this section quite doable. It's a section that you're not struggling with too much. So I'm sure that you'll probably know how to answer our questions, but let's go through the question step by step and see how to do the answer. So, here's a typical exam question. So it says, the following information relates to the trading activities of Niati traders for the financial year ended 28th of February 2013. This business is owned by S. Niati. and this business sells only one type of overhead projector. Okay, so you know those overhead projectors that you use in class? This business is selling those. And what they do is they are keeping the selling price constant throughout the year. So you need to read through that information. Now, the owner of this business, Mr. Niati, is keen to secure a loan from the bank. So what that means is he wants to go and borrow money from the bank, perhaps for future expansion, perhaps to buy a vehicle, we don't know. He also wants to ensure that the profit in the financial statements creates a very favorable impression with the bank. So what he wants to do is show a large amount of profit. I think, Abraham, if you were a bank, if I come to you and I want to borrow money, you would want to look at my financial statements, right?
So true. So true.
You would. And you would probably want to look at my profit. You would probably decide if this business is profitable, you will lend me the money. So we
You don't
would
want to take any risk.
wouldn't want to take any risk because just now I disappear and you as the bank sits without your money. So what this Mr. Niati wants to do, he wants to secure a loan from the bank. If you go and apply for a loan, the bank will want to look at your financial statements and see, is this a profitable business? So he wants to create a very favorable impression with the bank. Okay, so the business here uses the periodic inventory system. That's important for you to know. There are separate sections on periodic inventory that are also involved with stock valuation, but I'd like to ask you, Mindsetters, if anybody can shout out the answer to us on Facebook, what is the opposite of, or the other system, instead of the periodic inventory system that can be used? And this business also uses the FIFO method for valuing stock. Okay, so we know we're going to be dealing with first in, first out. Here is a whole lot of information on the page. We've got our sales for the year, we've got our stock on hand on the 1st of March, we've got purchases, and we've got 3 months of purchases over here. What we're going to do is look at the questions, and then we'll see how to use this information to get the answer. So, our first question is, calculate the total number of overhead projectors that were sold during the year. We want to know a number. We don't want to know a value. Please make sure that you don't get confused between number, as in the number of units, and rands or value, which would be a rand price or a money amount. This is also very important in your section on companies, when your authorized share capital could be expressed in the number of shares or in the rand value of the share capital. You must make sure you don't confuse them. So in this question, we actually just want to know the number of overhead projectors that were sold during the year. We want to know how many there were. So let's look at the information that's been given. Can you see here that this is the question mark? We don't know how many units were sold during the year. That's what the question wants us to calculate. But we've been given other numbers as well. We've been given the unit price is 1,400 Rand, and we've been given the total number of units sold. Those are our sales for the year. The total number of units sold is 252,000 Rand, and they were sold at a Rand value of 1,400 Rand each. So it's going to be quite easy to do the calculation. If I've sold X number of units, that's what I want to know, at 1,400 Rand each, and I got 252,000, very easy to calculate. You're just going to divide the money that you've earned by what each one was sold for to work out how many you've sold. So let's do it. We'll go to the answer sheet and write it down. The total sales were 252,000 Rand. And each of these items cost me 1,400. And that's going to give me the number of units. So the total sales, 252,000, and they were 1,400 each. If we do the calculation, let's bring the calculator up on the screen, it's going to be 252,000 divided by 1,400, and the answer comes to 180. So we can see from this calculation that we have sold 180 overhead projectors during this period. Okay, very easy calculation. I'm sure you would know how to do it. So, our second question asks us now, calculate the total number of overhead projectors that are on hand on the 29th of February. I think there's a mistake in this question. This should be 2013. Okay? We want to know what's the total number of overhead projectors on hand, and sorry, it's the 28th of February. The question says 2008, which was, of course, a leap year. 2013, we've got only 28 days in February. So we want to know how many overhead projectors were on hand on the 28th of February 2013. In other words, the end of our financial year. When they're asking you what is on hand, you need to know that that means how many were left over. And the other question that they could ask you that makes you calculate the same thing is your closing stock. So you could be asked the same question in a number of different ways. Let's see what information we have to answer this question. So can you see here that our stock on hand, let me just write in the answer to the previous question here, just to complete this table. The number of units we sold was 180. That was our answer to question 1. Okay, so that's what we've sold. Now, let's look at the rest of the information we've been given. We started the year with 40 units. Then we had purchases during the year of 210 units. Mindsetters, don't get confused by the way this question is set out. Can you see that under the 210 units, these are all of your purchases during the year? So we bought 210 units in total, but those were broken up into different times that we bought them. Can you see that in June 2012, we bought 30, in October 2012, we bought 80, in January 2012, we bought 100. So if you add those together, that gives you the 210 units that were there. So we've bought a total of 210 units. So you don't add those again, because otherwise you're going to get the wrong answer. All of these together, you know how in accounting we put a box around something that we add up, all of them together come to 210 units. So we started the year with 40, and we bought an extra 210, and at the end of the year, we've calculated that we sold 180. So if I started with 40, bought an extra 210, and I've sold 180, how many do I have? Well, I'm sure you know the answer, Mindsetters. You know how to calculate it. The calculation is easy. You start with your opening stock, which was 40 units. We're going to add our purchases, which was 210 units, and then if we want to know what we've got left, we're simply going to minus the 180 that we've sold. That will be an easy way of working out how many we've got left. So let's do that calculation. 40 plus 210 minus 180. Let me call up the calculator here. 40 plus 210 minus 180. What that means is that I have 70 units left. So of the 40 that I started with, plus the 210 that I've bought, I've sold 180, which means I'm left with 70 units. So the answer to this question is simply 70 units. I've got 70 overhead projectors in stock at the end of my financial year. Okay, let's look at now our next question. Here's where the stock valuation is coming in. Remember, we've said that the business uses the FIFO valuation method. First in, first out. What that means is that the first overhead projectors that came in are going to be the first overhead projectors that went out. So what we've asked now is to calculate the value of the closing stock using the FIFO method. What we want here, Mindsetters, is rands. We want to know how much are those 180 overhead projectors that we've got left in our stock, how much are they actually worth? And I need you to think about where you're going to show your closing stock on your financial statements. Remember, you want to calculate the value of your trading inventory, how much you've got left over at the end of the year, so that you can show that on your financial statements as your trading inventory. How do we do it? Remember, we are using the FIFO method. What that means is that the first overhead projectors to come in are the first ones that were sold. So let's look back at the information. Let me just clear some of this away. So can you see that we have bought our overhead projectors at different prices? And we've got January, June, and October, but I'm sorry, there's a small error with the date. This should be January 2013, because January 2012 did not fall in our financial year. But I'm sure you've picked that up. A small typing gremlin on my part. So can you see here that our opening stock was 210 units, and we've sold 180 in total. And we just put that 180 back there so that we have it. My question is, which 180 have we sold? Remember, the ones that came in first are the ones that go out first. So we sold 180. So we work from the top down. We've sold all 40 of those units. So out of the 180 we've sold, we sell those 40 first. So how many of the 180 are still left? There are 140 left. Next thing that we do is we compare this 140 and we see that we've purchased 30 units, 80 units, and 100 units. So which ones would we have sold next? We would have sold the ones in June next. So these 30 disappear, and we've got 110 left over that still need to be sold. Which 110 did we sell? Well, we sold 80 of those. So then there are 30 left over. And which 30 did we sell last? Well, we sold the 30 out of the 100 units, so that means that we have 70 of those left over. In other words, what this means, mindsetters, is that we have sold our first stock that came in, we have sold first. So the part that's left is just 70 out of these 100 units, because these 100 units were bought in January 2013. The ones in June and October, and the ones that we started with on the 1st of March 2012, those have all been sold. They're gone. So if we want to calculate the value of our closing stock, we are going to consider, very importantly, this value over here, these 750. The 70 that we have a unit price of 750 Rand each. Not 850, not 900, not 950. It was 750. And can you see, mindsetters, that the price of overhead projectors are coming down? AB, what do you think about overhead projectors? Do you think that people will still use them a lot?
I don't think so.
They've actually been replaced by maybe some better technology, I don't know.
Yes.
So that could maybe be a reason as to why our price declined. Can you see that this supplier is supplying the overhead projectors for us, but it was 950, and at the end of the year, it's actually only 750, the price has declined. So if we're valuing our closing stock, what we're going to do is quite easy. We're going to take the 70 units of overhead projectors that we have left, and we're going to multiply it by the price of each one, which is 750 Rand, because the only ones we have left are the 70 that came in last. In other words, the cheap ones, the ones that we bought after the price had dropped. So it will be 70 times 750. Let's just call it up on the calculator. I've already got the 70 there. 70 times 750, and my answer comes to 52,500 Rand. So let me put that there. Answer to this question is 52,500 Rand. So if you understand your principles of FIFO, you will know what the value of your closing stock is. It's the value of the overhead projectors that are left, and with FIFO, the first that comes in is the first that goes out. Okay, let's have a look at the next question. Our next question says to us, in order to secure the loan, the owner, Esniati, wants to change the stock valuation method. He wants to change the stock valuation method. Do you remember what I said to you earlier? It should ring some warning bells. Remember I said to you that it's not a good idea to consistently change the stock valuation method because it's going to give you comparisons that are perhaps not meaningful. Okay? But let's just see what this guy wants to do. This owner wants to change the stock valuation method to the weighted average method. So he's not using FIFO anymore. He wants to use the weighted average method. What he now wants us to do is to calculate the value of the closing stock, but this time he wants us to use the weighted average stock method. So again, this gremlin has crept in here again. It's again 2013, not 2008. We want to value it at the end of our financial year, and we want to do it using the weighted average method. Mindsetters, I'd like you to think about that as to how we would calculate a weighted average. Remember, the weighted average must be done by taking all of the different prices and calculating a weighted average of what the stock was worth over that period of time. So before we do that, I'd just like to ask you, Abraham, did we get any answers to my question on what the gross profit formula is?
So many answers that I have from the mindsetters. Just give me a minute. But otherwise, the mindsetters are enjoying the show. Here's one that comes from Fatima Ukoleko. Sales minus cost of sales equal to gross profit.
Excellent. So sales minus cost of sales. Well done, Fatima. I just wanted the answer to this question before we take another ad break and before we carry on using the weighted average method. Remember, mindsetters, if I want my gross profit, your formula is going to be sales minus cost of sales. Well done, Fatima.
Thank you to all the mindsetters also on the page, enjoying the lesson. But for now, let's just see you after this break. Don't go anywhere. Right, accounting buffins, welcome back. The lesson is still in progress. We're learning a lot with Martin. Hope you tuned in, but make sure that you're also on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/learnextra. Let's learn more as we also discuss the questions that you might be having, and let's help one another, because some mindsetters are saying this lesson is the easiest chapter ever. So let's continue learning as you bring those questions and comments.
Okay, thank you very much, Abrams, and welcome back, mindsetters. I asked you before the break just to think about how to calculate the weighted average system. And remember, there's another question that I threw out at you. Abraham, you'll tell me if somebody answers that question during the show. What's the other stock valuation system? Sorry, what's the other inventory system? Periodic, and I'll give you a clue, it also starts with a P. Send us in those answers. Somebody's already given us the answer there.
Yes.
Okay, so remember, mindsetters, the other stock system is what we call the perpetual system, and most of the time they ask you the perpetual system in a question. Please, 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 something that you must not do. Do not think that the perpetual system is maybe linked to either FIFO or weighted average. You can use the perpetual system with FIFO or weighted average, and you can also use the periodic system with FIFO or weighted average. One common mistake that learners make is they think the perpetual system automatically means one or the other stock valuation system. It's not exactly the same thing. There are two methods of inventory, and then there are two methods of valuing your closing stock. The methods of valuing your closing stock are your FIFO and your weighted average, and the inventory systems are perpetual and periodic. Okay, let me get rid of this, and we'll answer together the next question, which was to calculate, using the weighted average, the value of our closing stock in that example. Mindsetters, I'm sure you've done this in class many times, and I'm sure you know how to do it. But what we need to do to calculate the weighted average, you're going to write down everywhere the number of units, and you're going to multiply this by the cost per unit and get some answer. Every time you purchase something and your opening stock, you're going to write down here in a column the number of units, and you're going to multiply it by the cost each time you bought something, and that's going to give you an answer over here. What you'll then do is add all of those together and divide by the number of units, and that gives you the weighted average. So let's have a look as to how to do it. If we go back to our information, here it is. We start with our stock on hand. So our stock on hand, you see, is here, 40 units, and the stock on hand cost 950. So to do your weighted average, you're going to write the number of units down on this side, which is 40, and you're going to multiply it by the cost per unit, which is 950. And you're going to go through this with every purchase. So every time you purchased it, or purchased extra trading stock, you will write down the number of units you purchased and multiply it by the cost price. I'm leaving out the rand signs just to make the calculations a bit faster. So my purchases during the year were 210 units. Somebody on the Facebook page asked, this 210 units, why don't I just use the total number? The reason I'm not using the total number is because it's been broken up into three component parts. We bought 30 units, then we bought 80 units, and then we bought 100 units. But because the prices here were different each time, the 30 units cost me 900 Rand each, the 80 units cost me 850 Rand each, and the 100 units cost me 750 Rand. The price has gone down. What that means is that I can't just take the 210 units, I should consider what it's made up of, because the price has changed. Mindsetters, if your trading stock has the same value throughout the period, it doesn't matter. You don't have to use either FIFO or weighted average because the stock was all purchased at the same price. But if the unit price changes, like it did in this example, it was first 950, then 900, then 850, then 750, what that means is that we have to find a consistent method of valuing our closing stock. And that's where we choose between FIFO and weighted average. What we want to calculate here now is the weighted average. So we're going to continue filling in our table. There was 30 times 900. And then we look at the next item. It was 80 units at 850. And then the last ones that we bought was our final purchase was the 100 units at 750. So let's put that there. 100 units at 750. Sometimes in a question, the answer sheet will give you a special table where you write these things in. Other times, they will just give you a blank piece of paper like this where you have to do the calculation. It's easier if you're given the table, but you need to know the method without the table. So what we can do is we can calculate all of these. We're going to multiply them all together and add them up. So we're going to get a total over here of each of these units times their cost price. Now, I could sit and type all this into my calculator, but in a test or in an exam, I am going to rush to try and get this finished, so you need to look at the question very carefully. Can you see that in this example, they have already calculated the total for you? Here it is. Your 40 units times by 950 is equal to the total of 38,000. So I didn't actually have to sit and calculate all of those things because they actually gave us the total on the right-hand column. If they give you a total, you can already assume that that total is correct, but let's just check it to make sure that they are doing that. You see we've got 40 units over here, and those 40 units are worth 950 Rand each. Let's multiply it out. 40 times 950 gives you 38,000. So they've done it for us already. We can save time simply by copying these numbers down. And there's another thing that I want to show you. In this question, the 30 times the 900, which is our second row of the table, comes to 27,000, and our third one comes to 68,000, and our fourth one comes to 75,000. But what happens when you add all of those together? Do you see they've done it for you because they've given us our total purchases during the year. They've actually told us here, this 170,000 is the Rand value of all our purchases during the year. So make sure you look at all the information carefully. I deliberately wrote all of this out, and it took some time. But I could have saved all that time simply by taking my opening stock and adding my purchases. So let's put those pieces of information together. If I'm going to take my opening stock, my 40 times my 950, you remember the answer was here on this page, it's 38,000. So let's just fill that in, 38,000. Let's just get that pen there. We don't have to work out each of these individually because our question paper gave us that the total of all of our purchases was 170,000. In case you don't remember, look back, there's the number, 170,000. I could spend my time calculating those, but then I may struggle to finish the paper because I'll be multiplying things out rather than just writing the answers down. So there's an important lesson. Look at the information that you're given carefully. What we now do is we add this up. So 170,000 plus 38,000, let's do it on the calculator. 170,000 plus 38,000 gives me a total of 200, sorry, I've put in 17,000 by mistake. It's 170,000, count your zeros, very, very important, plus 38,000 gives you the answer of 208,000. So the total value of my stock was 208,000 Rand. And what I now need to do is know how much I bought, so how much I had in total. So I started with 40, and then I bought 30 and 80 and 100. And you'll remember that on the question paper, these added up to 210. That was the number that appeared at the top. In other words, that was this number over here, the 210 units that I've circled in bright pink. So If you add 40 plus 210, I'm sure you can do that in your heads, that comes to 250 units. So during the month, during the time period of 1 year, I had 250 units in total at 208,000. And what we do now is we divide the one by the other to calculate our weighted average. So if I want to know what my weighted average is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 208,000, which is the value of all the stock that I have. I'm going to divide it by 250, and that's going to give me my answer of 832 Rand. So 832 Rand is my weighted average. Let me write it in there. Weighted average is equal to 832 Rand. So what that means is that, on average, the stock that I bought this month or this year cost me 832 Rand. Now, the question actually asked us originally to value our closing stock. So you'll remember that our closing stock was 70 overhead projectors. We calculated that in the first question. It asked us how many units, in the second question, it asked us how many units we still had left, which was this answer here. Calculate the total of number of overhead projectors that are left over. There were 70. We want to know what the value of those overhead projectors are at the end of the period. So when you're calculating your closing stock or your cost of sales, it's very easy. You just take the value of your weighted average, which is 832 Rand, and you multiply it by what the stock, how many units there were of the stock. So your calculation is going to be 832, it's already in my calculator. I'm going to multiply it by 70, so that gives me the answer that my closing stock was worth 58,240 Rand. So let me write that down. That's the answer to my question, equals 58,240. Once you have this weighted average, mind-setters, you've actually solved most of the answer, or you've managed to answer most of the question. Because if you want to work out your cost of sales, all you're going to do is multiply this by the number of units that you sold. And if you want to know your closing stock, you're going to multiply it by the number of units that are left over. So in this case, it was 58,240. Okay, so what I'm not going to have time to get to this final question, but in this final question, you have to calculate the gross profit for the year using the weighted average method. So what you have to do is you have to take your sales figure and you have to subtract your cost of sales. What you need to do, mind-setters, to calculate the gross profit, find out your sales, and that's been given to us in the question already, is this 252,000 over here, which was the selling price of the stock. And then try and do it yourselves. See if you can calculate the cost of sales using this method. We know that the weighted average was 832, so I'm just going to give you the formula and you can calculate it yourself. It's going to be the 832 Rand, which is our weighted average, and we're going to multiply it by the number of units that we sold, which we remember was 180. So that would give you your cost of sales. What you need to think about, given all the information that we've done now, after you've calculated your gross profit, make sure you know whether it's ethical or unethical to change the stock valuation system and see what answers you can come up with. Give this business advice. Help Mr. Niati to decide whether or not he can change his stock valuation method. So I think we've just run out of time, Abraham.
Yes, Martin, unfortunately. But thank you very much for your time. And also thanks to you, Mindsetter, for watching. I hope that you've learned a lot. If you still have questions, you can also contact our help desk. Email us at helpdesk@learnextra.co.za. That's where we could also help you. But otherwise, thank you so much. Keep studying. Believe in yourself, because when you stop believing in yourself, no one will ever believe in you. From us, we just want to say we love you. on learnextra.co.za/live. One last thing that I need to tell you is that you can also visit our Career Indaba, which is going to be happening in Expo, which is going to be happening at Senton Convention Center from the 20th up until the 22nd of June. We'll be there also to meet you there, helping you with your careers and making sure that you make the right choices. But for now, let's learn more accounting.
Thank you very much, Abraham, and welcome, Mindsetters. Today's topic is a grade 12 topic, and this is a topic that was quite new to you because it's something that was not done in grade 11 and not done in grade 10. So we're talking about inventory valuation methods. When we're talking about inventory, Mindsetters, very, very important. If you run a business and you want to sell something, you are going to have something called trading stock. And your trading stock needs to be valued, which is why we have come up with a few different methods of valuing your trading stock. So that's what I'm going to be discussing with you today. Let's take a look at the theory that you need to learn. In today's lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to seek to understand the theory behind the two main stock valuation methods. We're trying to value our trading stock. We're trying to determine what the value of our inventory is. You need to know that we are going to experience a challenge to value our trading stock. How much is the stock that is on our shelves worth? So, as a result, we've got two methods to do this. The one is called FIFO, and the other one is called weighted average. There is a third method that you can also use, and Abraham, I'd like to maybe ask the Mindsetters to write into Facebook and tell us if you've heard of the third method. It's a third method of valuing stock. It's almost like FIFO, but there's a small difference. And let's see if any of our Mindsetters know that. Please write to us on the Facebook page and tell me what's the third method of stock valuation, and I'll tell you what that is afterwards. But remember, that's the one that you are not allowed to use in South Africa because that's the one that SARS does not allow. So the two that you are going to study and that you're going to have to know how to do are the FIFO method and the weighted average method. And what we do is when we start a business, we choose a method, but this method chosen should be used consistently. What do I mean by consistently? I mean we're not going to change that method. So from year to year, we need to use the same method to value the stock. I've asked you a question. Why is that the case? Throughout our business, we shouldn't really change the stock valuation system. There are two such methods that you will be likely to be asked in a test or an examination in grade 12. They are FIFO, some teachers call it FIFO, it's the same thing, or there is the weighted average method. And those are the two methods that I'm going to be going through with you today. What we need to do as well is understand the theory, but also apply the two stock valuation methods in a practical activity. So you're actually really going to do it. You're going to value your stock based on one of the two methods. And then finally, you need to be able to compare the two stock valuation methods. So we've got two ways of doing a thing, but we want to know what answers are we going to get and how do they differ from the FIFO method to the weighted average method. So let's have a look at the key concepts that you should know about. First of all, as I've said it before, these methods are applied when we want to value our trading stock. We've got other assets in the business. We've got land and buildings, we've got vehicles, we've got equipment. Those things can also be valued, but we use different ways. What we're doing in accounting here is valuing only our trading stock. Okay? It might sometimes be challenging to value our trading stock. So you know, Abraham,
Hello Mindsetters and welcome to it. This is your one and only most learning and most insightful show ever. It is Learn Extra. My name is Abraham and I'm not alone. I'm with Martin today. How are you, Martin?
Hi, I'm well, thanks, Abraham. How are you?
Nice meeting you.
Nice.
I'm so good and I can't wait to learn a lot because accounting is one of my favorite subjects.
Right, and today, Mindsetters, we're going to introduce you to inventory valuation methods, which is your FIFO and your weighted average. So we'll be discussing that just now.
I like that. Mindsetters, let me tell you what you need to do now. Before we discuss that, one, you need to take your pen and your paper and your cell phone next to you or your computer just next to you and log on to Facebook and like our page. If you haven't, please do right now. It is facebook.com/learnextra. Also on the page, you will see that we are having a special event just for you to wish your dad a special message for Father's Day, which is going to be on the 16th of June, next week, Sunday. So make sure that you get over the page and let us know what are your wishes for your dad. Secondly, you can add us on Twitter, follow us, and we'll follow you back at LearnExtra. And lastly, you can download your notes for this lesson.
When we go shopping, what happens to prices? They're constantly on the rise. And it makes it very, very hard to keep up with what the value of something is. Mindsetters, I'm sure you've experienced this in your daily life. You would go to a shop, you buy a Coke, and then a couple of months later or years later, you come back and then the price has risen. Okay? That can happen very, very fast, and it is difficult to value what your trading stock is really worth if prices are continually rising. Because let's say I bought some stock, I'm a supplier, right? And I buy some stock which I want to resell at the end of the month. And then I buy some more stock because I've sold some of the stock that I bought, but I buy the new stock at a higher price. The challenge comes in to know what is my stock worth at any given point in time. Am I going to use the cheaper price that I bought the stock at, or am I going to use the more expensive price? I need to figure out and know a method of valuing my trading inventory. So we know that in our economy, we've had some bad news in South Africa that in the recent times, the rand has depreciated. It's gone to almost 10 rand to the dollar. So what's going to happen to products that we import from overseas? The prices are going to go up. If the prices rise or if the prices change,